The Alabama Crimson Tide and the Georgia Bulldogs are set to face off once again in the SEC championship game. It's a 4 o'clock local kick, Atlanta, Georgia, in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Some people I feel like are not excited about this game. I have no idea as to why. I mean, it's Georgia, it's Alabama, it's in Atlanta. I mean, that combination of those two things always produces just a fantastic football game. It has like the last 4 or 5 times we've seen it, and I can't wait. I think it's going to be a phenomenal game. Both of these teams are sort of limping into this game, injured, especially on the offensive side of the football for Georgia and for Alabama. So we're not getting these teams at full strength, at least in my opinion. But we're going to see which team wants it more, which team is going to put up more of a fight with injuries. And I think Kirby said earlier this week when he was asked about injuries, he said, heck, if I was concerned about injuries, we wouldn't practice. And I mean, injuries are part of the game. They're part of the game of football, and backups are going to have to step up. So I'm excited to watch both of these teams play, both of these coaching staffs draw some stuff up. And I think it's going to be a really fun game. So much has changed in the whole world of college football over the last couple of years, with Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC, with the 12-team playoff becoming a thing, the transfer portal. I mean, Nick Saban, the greatest coach of all time, retired. And yet it just feels inevitable that Georgia and Alabama are to face each other in Atlanta at the very end of the SEC year. And after this game is played, 11 of the last 12 SEC champions will be either the Georgia Bulldogs or the Alabama Crimson Tide, with the one exception, of course, being the 2019 LSU Tigers. So it took maybe the greatest college football team of all time to stop one of these two teams winning the SEC championship game. And of course, everyone that has even mentioned this game, that is even talking about this game, and has talked about Alabama versus Georgia over the last 3 or 4 seasons, the main topic of conversation has been Georgia's Alabama problem. Because Georgia has been so good. They have been unbelievably good under Kirby Smart. I mean, look at this. They're 106-8 versus non-Alabama teams since 2017. That's crazy. 106-8 is wild. They've won 2 national championships. They've won 3 SEC championships. They've made it to the SEC championship game 5 straight times, which is more than even the great Nick Saban could do. And they've made the playoffs 4 times in that time span. But despite all of that, despite all the national success, despite going 106-8 and winning these SEC titles and making it to Atlanta year after year after year, Alabama still just owns Georgia. It is so weird. Georgia is 1-7 versus Bama since 2017. They can't beat them in Atlanta. They can't beat them in Tuscaloosa, and they couldn't even beat them in Athens. So it's just so weird. I remember I had the pleasure of being at the Georgia-Alabama game earlier this year in September, and I remember walking out of that game, and I was telling myself, really? They still can't beat Alabama? I mean, Alabama had just gotten embarrassed by Florida State, like not even a calendar month beforehand. And they just walked into Athens and dominated on the offensive side of the football for 2 quarters, and that was enough to win this football game. So, I mean, my goodness. Georgia just cannot figure it out. Is this the day? It might be. It might be. We'll have to see. Luckily, we have seen these two teams play before. It was on September 27th. Like I said, I had the pleasure of being at this game. Crazy atmosphere. The fans were going bonkers. And it was a great, great football game to be at and a great one to watch. To me, Ty Simpson was so good in this football game, at least in the first half. He was so dialed in. Some of the throws that he was able to make, whether it was Isaiah Horton on the cover 2 hole shot, Latsier Brooks on the deep, like 20-yard dig, that he fit that ball in between like 3 defenders perfectly. I mean, Ty Simpson was just so good. I mean, sometimes as a defense, you just have to kind of tip your cap to an offensive player. And Georgia did a lot of cap tipping in the first half against Ty Simpson. He was so good. Alabama was also just a juggernaut on 3rd down. It was crazy. They were 13 of 19 on 3rd down on the game. They were 9 of their first 9 3rd downs against Kirby Smart's defense. That is crazy what Alabama was able to do in this football game. They also really minimized mistakes, only 4 penalties. That was the first game. Kalen DeBoer had coached, what's 13 plus 3? Stats and my math department is telling me that's 16. So Alabama went their first 16 games with more penalties than their opponent. And the first game that Alabama had less penalties against their opponent was a night game between the hedges in Georgia against Kirby Smart. And they also didn't turn the ball over. And I thought it was really big that they really neutralized what Zachariah Branch did in this game. He only had 3 catches for 35 yards. One of those catches was an unreal play where Branch got sandwiched between two defenders and somehow made a catch. But they really minimized his run after the catch statistics, which I thought was really impressive. So that's what Alabama's greatness was in this game. Georgia, on the other hand, I think Gunnar Stockton really played very timid in this game, only had 130 passing yards on 20 attempts. This was early version of the season Gunnar Stockton, where we didn't really see him push the ball down the field. We didn't see him trust his eyes or trust his mechanics. And because of that, they really, really couldn't pass the ball in this game. They did have 227 yards rushing, though, which is 6.9 yards per rush. And a lot of that was on outside runs that Alabama really just didn't turn back in. They didn't leverage the football well at all in this football game. That's why Georgia had all that success on the ground. Georgia could not convert a third down, really, to save their. They were only 2 for 8 on third down. And because of that, because Alabama was able to convert so many third downs and stay on the field, and Georgia couldn't convert any at all, Alabama had 10 more minutes of time possession than Georgia, and they were just kind of able to control the game pretty much the entire time. I thought that Georgia did a much better job in the second half, slowing this Bama offense down. I thought Georgia played a lot of, cover 3 disguised looks. They rotated into cover 2. And every time they ran zone coverage, Alabama and Ty Simpson just picked it apart. I mean, even in the first drive of the game when Ryan Williams was wide open, Georgia showed like one high, rotated into cover 2, and it was just a perfect play call. Ryan Williams split it right down the middle. Of course, he ended up dropping the football, but that didn't even really matter because Alabama drove down the field in like 14 plays and scored anyway. So I think Alabama's offense was just the combination of play calling from Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer, Ty Simpson just being an absolute madman, and these receivers stepping up and making plays. Alabama really could not be stopped offensively in the first half. I think that Georgia realized they could play man coverage against Alabama. They could play a lot tighter defense against these wide receivers, and that's why they slowed them down in the second half. But Alabama still was able to win this football game on the road. So that was a long time ago. We are sitting here in December. It is like 38 degrees outside. It was not that temperature when we played this football game. So let's look at what Georgia's offense has been able to do this entire season. I think it's very notable that Drew Bobo is not ready to go for this football game. He could be out for the entire season with the injury he sustained against Georgia Tech. Drew Bobo is a great football player. He is one of the best centers in the SEC, and his absence is big time. To say that Georgia is not going to miss a beat without Drew Bobo is a disrespect to Drew Bobo, in my opinion. They're going to be starting their, I think he's a sophomore, Malachi Holsey, I think is his name, who has played some guard this year for Georgia, but his first start as a Georgia Bulldog is going up against Tim Keenan, one of the best nose tackles in the SEC. Like, that is going to be rough for sure. But anyway, Georgia's offense, they've been way better, way more efficient running the ball than they have been passing the ball. And Gunnar Stockton is weird. I feel like he's improved so much as the year has gone on. But that Georgia Tech game, he really, really struggled. I thought that it's like he lost his confidence. Like, there were a number of times where he could have ripped a sail route or a dig route or something, and he just sort of took the check down. Like, it was like we were watching weeks 1 through 4 Gunnar Stockton in the game against Georgia Tech in clean old-fashioned heat. It was like he got so much better, and he was taking a big step forward every game, and then he just all of a sudden took a big step back. So I was kind of confused on what happened there, but what version of Gunnar Stockton are we going to see? That's a great question. I do not know. Personally, I really like Gunnar Stockton. I think he's a great quarterback that just plays with so much heart. Like, I think all the Georgia offensive players look at Gunnar Stockton and they say, that guy he might not be the most talented quarterback we've ever played with, but that dude gives 110% every single snap, and I will play on his offense. So that's what I love about Gunnar. But, I mean, if he's going to play afraid out there again, I don't know. Georgia's offense might struggle a little bit. They've been able to run the ball so well recently, though, even without Chauncey Bowens. I mean, it seems like Chauncey Bowens has not even really played recently. It's all been Nate Frazier and Josh McCray. Just give it to 2 and 3, and they will get you work. That's for sure. I think Georgia's tight ends, I've said this so many times on this podcast, Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky are just such weapons in the run game. They do such a great job opening things up for Georgia in terms of creases, lanes, whatever it may be. And Nate Frazier is starting to run hard, and he's a Christian. So shout out to Nate Frazier. I think Noah Thomas is, if Georgia wants to really win a national championship this year and compete with the best of the best, Noah Thomas is going to have to be their bell cow in terms of receiving threat down the field. I know Zachariah Branch is fantastic. I get it. He is so, so good after the catch. He might be the hardest person in college football to tackle one-on-one in the open field. But he's not like a big, dominant X wide receiver. Georgia had that with Colby Young, and he's gone. He's out for the year. And Noah Thomas has 16 catches all season. So I know he's got the skill set. He's like 6'6", and he can run zig routes in the red zone. He's got the skill set. To me, the thing that Noah Thomas lacks is the effort on blocking and on just overall route running. So I think he really is going to need to step up in this football game. I have a stat written here. Georgia's had more rushing yards than their opponent in 6 straight games, and they're not just playing, sorry opponents. They've done that against Ole Miss, Florida, Texas, Georgia Tech. So Georgia, I think the key to winning this game is Gunnar Stockton playing aggressively. And he didn't do that in his first game against Alabama. He didn't do it against Georgia Tech. Can we see the version of Gunnar Stockton that went up against Texas? That was just a Mike Bobo masterclass of a play calling game, and Gunnar Stockton played so well. Are we going to see that version of this Georgia passing attack? Or are we going to see the Georgia Tech version where you don't have Drew Bobo and Gunnar Stockton's just playing afraid and Noah Thomas doesn't know what to do? So I think that's going to be really, really interesting to see with Georgia. But I think they will have a run game to lean on. I think that's really important. I mean, not every team has that. Alabama sure doesn't have that, and Georgia does. And they're going to be going up against a pretty good defense with the Alabama Crimson Tide. They're third in the SEC in yards allowed per game. They have been so good in the secondary. Their secondary is dynamite. Xavier Brown is one of the best corners in college football, and he's been playing good all year long. He has not had a bad game this entire season. And he's playing opposite Dijon Lee, who is maybe one of the best freshman defensive players in the country. So those corners on the outside are the best part of this Alabama defense. They are without LT Overton. That's important to note. LT is, I think, Alabama's leading tackler on the defensive line. I think he's got like 4 or 5 sacks in this game. So not having LT Overton is definitely going to be a big loss for this Alabama front, which has struggled to stop the run for sure. And a lot of that has been struggling to defend mobile quarterbacks. Gunnar Stockton is not that. But when these two teams face each other in September, like I talked about earlier, Georgia ran the ball for over 225 yards. So you got to stop the run in this football game. You have to, if in my opinion, if you're Alabama, you have to make Georgia beat you by Gunnar Stockton playing aggressively and winning the football game. I think tackling the flats is going to be big for Alabama. I mean, Zachariah Branch, Georgia's screen game is so good because of how much magnetism Zachariah Branch draws because he's so dynamic. If Alabama can tackle the flats, and that's a big Red Morgan game for them. Red Morgan's their nickel corner. If he can tackle the flats, that's a big time dub for Alabama. And also, I think it really helps stopping the run with no Drew Bobo going up against Tim Keenan. It's going to be tough for Georgia to run in the trenches. It's going to be very, very difficult. They're going to have to work to the outside. So can Bray Hubbard and Damani Jackson and Xavier Brown and Dijon Lee leverage the football? If they can do that successfully, and if they can tackle the flats, to me, that's the key to victory for Alabama defensively. And I think they're capable of doing that. They have to play selfless football in this game if they want to beat Georgia. Offensively, Alabama has been one of the most fascinating, weird, elite, but also not offenses in college football this year. It's been really, really interesting. I mean, they're 8th in total yards in the SEC, which is not great. It's like they're the opposite of last year. I feel like last year, Alabama offensively, it was either they ran the ball for over 250 yards, whether it was against LSU or Georgia or whoever, and they just had a dynamic run game with Jalen Milroe, and their offense looked so good. But Lord help them if they needed to throw the ball over 20 yards because they just could not do that consistently. This year, it's like the complete opposite. I mean, their passing game is really, really efficient. They're 4th in the SEC in passing yards per game. Ty Simpson, at times, has looked like the best quarterback in college football. But Lord help them if they need to run the ball. I mean, it's so funny. I don't understand. Alabama, their last 2 years, have not been able to be consistent on both sides of the offensive attack. So that's just what Alabama's offensive identity is. And you might say to yourself, well, Robert, they ran the ball really well against Auburn. No, they didn't. Jam Miller had 4 good carries. That was it. And he's injured. So they're not going to get those 4 good carries in this game. And I am a big believer in Daniel Hill. I really love the guy. But they are without Jam Miller. They're without Kevin Riley. Daniel Hill and A.K. Deere are going to need to step up and make big plays. I think it's also very, very, very notable that Parker Brailsford is like playing on one foot right now. Parker Brailsford is so good. He is, like, in my opinion, he's the best center in the SEC. His first step is just a thing of beauty. He is so good. But his left foot is like gone. And it might be his right foot. One of his feet is just like not even there. So his first step is just not quite there. He just doesn't have it. And he's still great, but not having him at 100% really hurts this team, especially running the football. They are also without Josh Cuevas, their starting tight end. I was really impressed with what I saw from who's their backup tight end? I forget his name right now. Their backup tight end I thought played pretty well against Auburn, but not having Cuevas is something to note for sure. And I mean, to me, the question for this Alabama offense is, can they be as good on third down? Because that's pretty much how they won the game in Athens, was they were elite. Like one of the best third down offenses I've ever seen. And a lot of that was Ryan Grubb just knowing what to call. I mean, he was on point. He did not miss in that Georgia game. And someone else who did not miss was Ty Simpson. And Ty Simpson, like we've talked about on this podcast, had that 8-game stretch of brilliance. His QBR was at 86.1. That's on a scale of 0 to 100. That's really, really good. But his last 3 games, I mean, that's supposed to say 3 games. I only have it at 2. It's only an average of 64.1. He has not played as well in the last few games as he did during that 8-game stretch. In my opinion, he's very much so not at 100%, but he is still so talented. Like what we've seen from Ty Simpson and at his peak, in my opinion, is the best we've seen from any quarterback in college football. You don't see any other quarterbacks taking 5-step drops, no hitch, and getting the ball out. That doesn't happen. But Ty Simpson does it. He, at his peak, is so good. So to me, the game comes down for Alabama on offense. Can you convert on third down like you did last year? And can Ty Simpson make just those unreal, jaw-dropping, eye-opening throws that he made against Georgia in Athens at the beginning of the year? Because it might all hinge on that. It literally might all hinge. This game might completely be decided on what version of Ty Simpson that we get. Do we get the version that is incredible and unreal? Or do we get the version that throws the ball into double coverage 3 or 4 times a game and doesn't get rid of the ball in time and takes sacks and fumbles? So honestly, that might be the deciding factor. I know that it's very like cookie cutter to say, well, you know, it depends on how good the quarterback plays. If the quarterback plays well, they win the game. And I am completely against that conversation because I hate it, but it might be true in this football game. Let's look at the defense that Alabama's going to be going up against. That's the Georgia Bulldogs. They're pretty good. And they are especially really good at stopping the run. They're allowing 86 rushing yards per game, which is second in the Southeastern Conference. I mean, not a single team, it feels like, has been able to really crack Georgia's run defense. Auburn did in the first half for sure, and Mississippi State did at the end of the game, which I don't really count. But this run defense is phenomenal. Their defensive line plays really selfless football. C.J. Allen is the best linebacker in college football, in my opinion. If you want to watch a good football player on Saturday, keep your eyes on number 3 of Georgia. I mean, he is just a monster. He's a heat-sinking missile, and he makes plays. And the Georgia defense, it's also interesting. It's worth noting that they don't really have a very consistent pass rush. That's been a case for them all season. They're last in the SEC in sacks, which is so weird. I mean, it's Georgia. How are they last in the SEC in sacks? It's just bizarre to me, but it's worth noting. And they didn't get any pressure on Ty Simpson at the early, or when they played in September. And I remember I heard a lot of Georgia fans saying, why don't we just blitz him? You know, we couldn't get any pressure. And he kept just gnashing us. Why didn't we just blitz him more? Well, Kirby Smart said in his press conference, I think we should have dropped back 11 against Ty Simpson and not rushed any. Because no matter how many we blitzed, Ty Simpson's footwork was so good that he would get the ball out in time without us getting there. So there was like no point of even having a pass rush. So if we get that version of Ty Simpson where he's just undefensible, then Alabama's going to have so much success again. But it really all comes down to that. It comes down to Ty Simpson. So with all that in mind, with everything that has happened the last 4 or 5 years between these two football teams, with all the SEC championship juices that are on the line in this football game, with Alabama's front seven being banged up, Georgia's offensive line being banged up, Ty Simpson and Gunnar Stockton struggling, sort of dragging their teams to Atlanta and finally getting to the finish line. And now we get to see which team is more gritty and wants it more. Who do I think is going to win this football game? I'm taking the Georgia Bulldogs. And listen. If you're an Alabama fan and you've watched my podcast this year, you know that I picked Alabama to lose to Missouri. I picked Alabama to lose to Auburn. I picked Alabama to lose to Georgia at the beginning of the year. And I'm picking Alabama to lose again to Georgia. So every single time I picked Alabama to lose this year, they've won. So that's a good sign for Alabama fans that I'm picking Georgia. I just think if I'm Georgia, they have to disguise coverages better and run man coverage. I think when they run man coverage, they will have a lot of success against these Alabama receivers because they haven't really been able to make a lot of plays. And when they've been getting open, Ty Simpson has frankly struggled to get it to him. And I thought Auburn did a really, really good job disguising cover three. I thought that's really what rattled Ty Simpson in the third quarter. And just blitzing like every other play. So Georgia needs to do that as well. And they need to get as many hits on Ty Simpson as possible. Whenever Alabama runs a power read with some jet motion, and you got to bite on Jerry Bernard, bite on Rico Scott, bite on whoever they're bringing over. Make Ty Simpson keep the ball and hit him as much as you can if you're Georgia. You want to make Ty Simpson as uncomfortable as you possibly can. And then Malachi Tolliver needs to hold his own. He's the starting center this game for Georgia behind Drew Bobo. He's going up against Tim Keenan. If he can hold his own in this football game, that will be big. And then I think that the confidence of Gunnar Stockton will show through in this game. I think that Georgia's heart and their effort and their passion will just barely outlast Alabama's. I think it's going to be a great game. For Alabama, so much, like the whole game hinges on Ty Simpson, which at the beginning of the year, every time a team loses, everyone just targets the quarterback. When Texas loses to Ohio State, it's, Arch Manning is terrible. When Alabama loses to Florida State, Ty Simpson is terrible. I hated that talk. But this game really comes down, in my opinion, to what level of Ty Simpson that we see. Again, tackling the flats and forcing outside runs inside is huge for Alabama's defense to get off the field against Georgia. They can't have a lot of special teams errors. They've had fumbles on punts. They've missed field goals. If they do that against Georgia, they really don't give themselves a shot. And Alabama's coaching staff was absolutely in their bag against Georgia at the beginning of the year. I mean, they were pulling out just crazy plays that they were able to beat the Dogs with. And then they played Missouri. They pulled out even more of a bag work against Missouri. And then they did against Oklahoma. And then they did against Auburn. How much of the playbook do you have left? Do you have another plethora of amazing plays that Georgia hasn't been able to see in the film room that you can run again? I'm not sure. We'll see. I could be completely wrong. This is a very high-level staff that Alabama has. But just in my personal opinion, I've got Georgia winning the SEC championship game for the second year in a row over the Alabama Crimson Tide. Whether win or lose, in my opinion, both of these teams should 100% be in the playoffs, and I think they will be in the playoffs. But, I mean, I cannot trust the playoff committee to do anything. Like, I legitimately have no trust in them. So, Alabama, you want to be in the playoffs? Win this game. And then you leave no doubt. But with that being said, I've got Georgia winning, which is a great sign for Alabama fans. Maybe not as good of a sign for Georgia because I picked them to beat Alabama earlier in the season. But thanks for watching, folks. I hope that you all have a great weekend, a great holiday season. Make sure to always keep our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ in mind over the Christmas season so we can celebrate his coming because he is really what fulfills us in this life. And without him, we wouldn't ever really have true happiness. So thanks so much for watching, folks. God bless. And I'll see y'all in the next video you choose to watch or not, which is totally fine. Y'all have a great night.